It's a cold Moscow night, and Oleg Gordievsky sits facing KGB interrogators who believe he's a British spy. Weeks remain before he escapes the Soviet Union, or he will be executed. The interrogators pour cognac, laced with barbiturate, designed to break his resistance. The drug hits fast, and the room tilts as Gordievsky's vision blurs and time becomes liquid.
Admit.
Gordievsky wakes after 5 hours of interrogation, with his mind blank, but alive. The KGB released him with a single warning: never work abroad again. 16 years earlier, Soviet tanks rolled into Prague and crushed the Prague Spring. Gordievsky watches from the Soviet embassy
They shoot their own.
as his faith in the communist system dies. October 1974. Gordievsky makes contact with British intelligence and becomes an MI6 agent. For 11 years, he serves two masters, the KGB openly and Britain secretly.
It's a deal.
November 1983, and NATO runs exercise Able Archer 83 as a military readiness test. Soviet leadership interprets the exercise as cover for a genuine nuclear first strike. 70 Soviet SS-20 missiles relocate to launch positions. Gordievsky's intelligence reaches Margaret Thatcher, who briefs President Reagan about the crisis. The American president is shocked that the USSR believes NATO is launching a first strike right now. May 17, 1985. Gordievsky receives orders to return to Moscow immediately. Cold fear runs down his back because he knows what Moscow orders mean for suspected defectors. He has weeks to escape, or he will be interrogated and executed. 3 black Ladas with KGB officers follow Gordievsky continuously through Moscow. Whether shopping or jogging or walking, the watchers appear within minutes. He is never alone, and the surveillance never stops. Gordievsky discovers his apartment deadbolt is triple locked from outside by KGB officers. The fear crystallizes because he understands the KGB is tightening the noose. For 2 months, his only contact with MI6 happens through dead drops in Moscow parks. MI6 does not know he is trapped, and his lifeline has gone silent. The KGB interrogates him for 5 hours, then releases him with only a warning. MI6 activates Operation Pimlico, an emergency exfiltration through Finland. The plan: signal at a Moscow street corner, and when MI6 responds with a Harrods bag, escape. Gordievsky has no passport because the KGB confiscated it during house arrest. Conventional escape through checkpoints would be detected, but a man without papers cannot cross borders. MI6 anticipated this, and Operation Pimlico bypasses all checkpoints. July 10, 1985. Gordievsky jogs to a street corner carrying a red Safeway shopping bag. But the black Ladas are unusually close, and KGB surveillance is more alert. July 18, 1985. 2 months of surveillance have passed with no legal escape. The KGB will find evidence of espionage, and the punishment is death. One option remains: activate Operation Pimlico tomorrow or die. July 19, 1985. Gordievsky carries a red Safeway shopping bag to a Moscow street corner. A British MI6 officer is stationed nearby watching, and if he sees the signal, escape becomes live. The signal is sent, and somewhere MI6 is mobilizing as the extraction begins. Gordievsky has to reach the train station before the KGB realizes what has happened. Gordievsky buys a ticket to Leningrad because thousands travel that route, and he boards the overnight express as the doors close and the engines rumble. 3 black Ladas pull up outside the station entrance, but the train is already moving, and the point of no return is crossed. The overnight train moves north through the darkness as Moscow falls away behind him, and KGB officers are still searching Moscow streets. They are looking in the wrong place because the escape has already begun. Leningrad Station appears at early morning on July 20th, and Gordievsky has traveled 700 kilometers without detection. But the hardest part remains, because crossing the Finnish border is still ahead, and time is running out. 40 kilometers through pine forests, and Gordievsky sits among ordinary commuters as a factory worker reads a newspaper and an old woman dozes. No one looks at him twice, but inside, his heart is pounding as the train carries him closer to the border. Zelenogorsk appears 40 kilometers from Leningrad and 30 kilometers from the Finnish border. The final leg awaits as a bus to Vyborg will carry him toward the last Soviet town before freedom. The bus moves through smaller villages, and each one brings him closer to the border as Finland draws near. Somewhere ahead, Soviet guards with dogs are waiting at the checkpoint. Vyborg appears, and Gordievsky steps off the bus with no luggage and no identification into the last Soviet town before Finland. In the outskirts, Mi-6 waits in a Ford Sierra with diplomatic plates. Mi-6 has prepared safe houses in Vyborg, and a Ford Sierra waits with documents ready, and the border is 30 kilometers ahead. Soviet checkpoint guards with dogs and rifles stand between Gordievsky and freedom. 6 kilometers from the checkpoint, the car stops on a forest road, and Gordievsky climbs into the trunk. Space blanket and darkness and silence close in as the trunk shuts, and 36 hours of hiding begin. The checkpoint appears with barriers and floodlights and guards, and the Mi-6 officer checks his mirror. In the trunk, Gordievsky hears the car slow down, and he knows the checkpoint is here. The car stops, and a guard walks toward the window and demands papers because diplomatic plates should mean no search.
Papers.
In the trunk beneath them, Gordievsky holds his breath and waits. The dog circles the vehicle with its nose working and sniffing and investigating every surface. A dog can smell a human at 40 meters, and the handler watches as this moment decides everything. The dog barks aggressively, and the handler reads the alert as positive.
The dog detects something!
Which means searching the trunk. In the booth, the senior guard's hand moves toward his belt. The guard's fingers find the trunk latch, and the dog barks louder and louder. The wife sees everything and understands the trunk will open in seconds unless something changes now. The wife opens the car door and places a soiled baby diaper on the roof.
Diaper problem!
The stench is overwhelming, and the dog's nose turns completely away from the trunk. The guard examines the papers at arm's length because every man understands dirty diapers,
quickly.
and the dog is hopeless. He stamps the papers without further check, and the barrier rises, and the car proceeds. A sign appears reading, "Welcome to Finland," and everything changes as the car crosses the border. Behind is Moscow, and the KGB, and death. And in the trunk, Gordievsky feels the crossing is complete. Finland cooperates with British intelligence, and the Finnish government knows everything. Mi-6 has arranged passage, and the officer examines the plates and waves them through. 20 kilometers into Finland, the car slows, and a safe house appears, and the garage door closes. The engine stops, and silence fills the space, and the trunk opens as 36 hours of hiding end. Hot water and a shower for the first time in 72 hours, and Gordievsky's hands tremble. His body is safe, but his mind remains trapped in the trunk and in Moscow. Sleep will not come, and his mind replays interrogation, and trains, and the trunk, and dogs, and the diaper. He expects to wake still captured in Moscow, because the escape feels impossible and unreal. The route continues from Finland through Norway, and then by ferry toward Britain, as each stage brings papers and stamps. Diplomatic plates protect them at every crossing, and border guards wave them through. Many times I was saying to myself, it's like a movie. It was incredible. Behind is the Soviet Union, and ahead is Britain, and 2,000 kilometers of enemy territory are now behind him. London, and he is free, but something is broken inside because his wife and daughters were on holiday in Azerbaijan when he escaped. They are now trapped as hostages and leverage against his silence. Photographs of Layla and Maria and Anna sit on the desk, and the girls are 6 years old when he last saw them, He touches the glass, but cannot embrace them, and 6 years of KGB control lie ahead for his family. Margaret Thatcher proposes an exchange to spare his family,
I'm sorry, there is nothing we can do.
but the Soviet Union refuses. She expels 25 Soviet diplomats in retaliation, but his family remains hostage for 6 years.
They cannot help.
In 1986, Gordievsky watches from his apartment window as British police escort Soviet diplomats carrying cardboard boxes. 25 diplomats and their families depart, but his own wife and daughters remain captive in Moscow. September 1991, and the Soviet Union collapses, and his family is finally released, and they arrive in London. But 6 years of separation and KGB interrogation have broken something that cannot be fixed. Gordievsky and Layla attempt to rebuild their marriage, but reconciliation fails, and the daughters refuse to reconnect. And the marriage dissolves, and his daughters choose not to see him again.
You chose your ideals.
In 2007, Queen Elizabeth II appoints Gordievsky Companion of the Order of St. Michael and St. George. Official recognition as a war hero, but in the ceremony hall, no family sits beside him. I didn't betray the country, and I didn't betray the people of the Soviet Union. I betrayed the regime. Oleg is not a winner. He has really paid a huge price,